Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G.
And I'm Chris Beers.
The DNC is entering its last day. Big moments tonight. NTD's Kelly Wright brings us more from the ground.
Meanwhile, former President Trump is visiting the border in Arizona. He's scheduled to give remarks in the next hour.
Are nonprofits registering non-citizens to vote in Texas? The Lone Star State's Attorney General announces an investigation into organizations allegedly doing just that.
Former President Trump is having some fun on social media. He posts several AI-generated images that appear to show support for his presidential campaign.
British tech tycoon Mike Lynch's body has been recovered. We take a look at his drawn-out court battle with Hewlett-Packard, where he was cleared of criminal charges.
Canada's two largest freight railroads lock out 9,000 Teamsters, causing operations to halt and risking major economic fallout. What key industries in the U.S. could be affected?
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
It's the final night of the Democratic National Convention. Vice President Kamala Harris is set to give her keynote speech tonight. It's the most high-profile moment of her political life so far. Her campaign is hoping to define her as a prosecutor, a fighter, and a daughter of a single middle-class mother.
That's right. Last night at the Democratic National Convention, we saw some heavy hitters in the world of politics and entertainment. NTD's Daniel Monahan has the highlights.
Democratic vice presidential nominee Tim Walz formally accepted his nomination at the convention yesterday. The Minnesota governor lashed out at Republicans on abortion access, the environment, and bank deregulation.
But when we Democrats talk about freedom, we mean the freedom to make a better life for yourself and the people that you love. And yeah, your kids' freedom to go to school without worrying about being shot dead in the hall.
Walz says he's a veteran and a hunter.
But I'm also a dad. I believe in the Second Amendment, but I also believe our first responsibility is to keep our kids safe.
Music and politics collided as Walz walked off to Neil Young's Rocking in the Free World, which Young signed off on. The rocker famously sued former President Trump for using the song at his campaign rallies without permission. After Walz's remarks, his family members joined him on stage to celebrate the moment. Senator Amy Klobuchar touted Walz's past accomplishment as a coach of a football team that went 0-27, only to win a state championship after the governor took over as defensive coordinator.
Who better to take on the price of gas than a guy who could pull over to help change your tire?
The senator said Walz knows how to work on both sides of the aisle.
Who better to find common ground than a guy with Midwestern common sense?
Former President Bill Clinton said electing Harris and Walz is something people will never forget.
You will be proud of it for the rest of your life. Your children will be proud of it. Your grandchildren will be proud of it.
House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries commended President Biden for selflessly passing the torch to Vice President Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris is a courageous leader, a compassionate leader, and a common sense leader who will deliver real results for everyday Americans.
Recording artist Stevie Wonder made an appeal for unity.
We must choose to be above the ugly words, the hateful anger, and the division those words and anger create.
In a somber moment, the parents of hostage Hirsch Goldberg Pollen took their pleas for a ceasefire deal to the convention floor. The devastated mom collapsed in tears as the crowd chanted, "Bring them home."
Hirsch, if you can hear us, we love you. stay strong, survive.
Goldberg Pollen was kidnapped from the Nova Music Festival during the October 7th Hamas terror attack, his arm blown off from the elbow down. His father says there is a surplus of agony on all sides of the tragic Middle East conflict.
In a competition of pain, there are no winners.
More than 1,000 anti-Israel demonstrators protested yesterday evening, just a half mile from a Chicago park where pro-Israel demonstrators gathered on the third night of the convention. The opposing demonstrations came a day after violent clashes between police and protesters led to 56 arrests. The Democratic convention concludes today. Presidential nominee Kamala Harris is scheduled to speak. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
A big night tonight at the Democratic National Convention. We'll be hearing from Vice President Kamala Harris. NTD's Kelly Wright is there in Chicago on the grounds of the Democratic National Convention right now. Kelly, good afternoon. Tell us, what are some of the biggest highlights from yesterday and what's happening right now?
Well, I think you just showed some of them. Good afternoon to you as well. Some of those highlights coming, of course, in the form of the legendary Stevie Wonder, a musician extraordinaire. Then you heard from Tim Walz himself, but you also heard from Hakeem Jeffries, as well as former President of the United States, Bill Clinton, Oprah Winfrey. Oprah particularly talking about that she's a registered independent, and using last night as an opportunity to talk to independents who are out there who perhaps are still undecided about which way they're going to vote. Are they going to vote for Donald Trump, or will they vote for Kamala Harris? And Oprah basically stating to independents to reach out and embrace joy, which is the momentum that many of the stalwart speakers last night talked about, having a campaign of joy. The question for Kamala Harris, though, will she be able to stand and deliver tonight and actually produce a movement along with her campaign? One other noteworthy example last night you showed that was in Rachel Goldberg basically being so emotional that she had to bend over in tears. Another reason for that is that the family was told before they spoke here at the DNC that they might receive a cold reception. It was anything but that. You could see throughout the entire arena people breaking their hearts with them, rending their hearts with them, crying with them, even though there were protesters outside of this area. Inside, as you're seeing right there, people saying, bring them home, bring them home, bring them home. And having been to Israel myself and actually talking to hostages' families, I can tell you that was a very palpable moment for them.
I want to come back, talk a little more about this. As you did say, lots of crying, lots of people touched by the parents of Hersh Goldberg Pollen when they were speaking up on the stage. Have you spoken to any of them? What is the DNC feeling about this? Because these parents did mention that, bringing hostages home is far more than a political problem. And so what have people been saying about that?
So look, this is a human problem. And last night you got to see the core of how people respond to the humanity of what took place on October 7th, 2023, and in the wake of that, the war between Israel and Hamas. You saw that right there on the convention floor in real life. And what people are saying here is that, yeah, they want to see a conclusion to this violence, to this political difficulty. They want to see Hamas come to the table, free the hostages, and find a ceasefire. Benjamin Netanyahu wants the same thing, but the hostages' families that I've spoken to have always stated they want those hostages returned home, and that is the fundamental thing that they're putting out, and that's what the message came from the Goldbergs. And keep in mind, we're now approaching 11 months that those hostages have been held in captivity by Hamas terrorists. So that is something that Kamala Harris will have to address. We do know that right now that President Joe Biden, as well as the Vice President Harris, are working. They've been on the phone with Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, to try to get everyone to the table to that ceasefire. Hamas has routinely, Iran, and its proxies have continued to stymie that process of coming to a peaceful equation and bringing people back, bringing those hostages back. So that remains to be seen. But people here, they feel that. They know that. And they feel it in such a way that they want to see the hostages return home. Of course, there's this cry from the left saying that Palestinians must speak tonight. But we heard from people who spoke, and we saw how this party or the people here in Chicago responded.
Yeah, a very important message there that bringing home the hostages, it's more than a political problem. It's a human issue. Moving on, I know you've been there on all 3 nights so far of the DNC. Who else have you been talking to at Media Row?
So we spoke yesterday to Representative Jim Clyburn. He's a Democratic leader. He's from South Carolina. The interesting thing about Congressman Jim Clyburn, if you go back to the last election when President Joe Biden was just a candidate, he was having a very difficult time getting any traction against his Democratic rivals. And Jim Clyburn from South Carolina made it happen. He helped Joe Biden win the South Carolina primary, and the Biden campaign never looked back. He went all the way to win the election, and after winning that election, he stated publicly, I want to thank Congressman Jim Clyburn. Without you in South Carolina, this would not have been done. In fact, he even turned things around by making sure that South Carolina would be the first primary for Democrats in the country. Now that brought the ire of Iowa, because Iowa traditionally has done the caucuses, but that was like a thank you to Jim Clyburn.
Very interesting there, Kelly. Tonight is a big night for the DNC. Vice President Harris is expected to make her speech formally accepting her nomination for presidency. What are people there hoping or expecting to hear from her tonight?
Well, look, all this week it's been a biography, if you will, of Kamala Harris. America doesn't know Kamala Harris. Californians do. They have their way of looking at her. Those who support her and have watched her grow into her public service life, those who support her are endorsing her and saying that she will show just how valuable she is, and they will call her a gift of joy for America. Those on the other side, the Republican Party that is not aware of Kamala Harris, and even the independents, they are looking at her with a degree of skepticism, because for the past 4 years they've been able to judge her based on the record of the Biden-Harris presidency. You have to keep in mind that she has served as the vice president. Donald Trump, the challenger here, the Republican challenger, the former president, has said that she has failed America on the border, calling her comrade Kamala because of the financial plan that she introduced, likening it to Maduro, Venezuela. So she has a tall hill to climb. So most notably tonight, people will be looking for how she does her own narrative. Americans are the power of narrative, and she will probably spend about 40 to 60% identifying who she is. After that, she will bring in some policy issues and that she will address. She'll talk about the economy. People have to talk about the economy. People are hurting out here on all sides now, Republican, Democrat. She will have to do that. And then she will have to show herself to be likable. People have definitely sold her. Last night, getting back to one other thing, her running mate, Tim Walz, he's a man for the people, as he tried to show last night. He's a guy that will bring white men to the focus of looking at Kamala Harris, because he's an all-around guy. Football coach, a teacher. He's progressive. That's a challenge that he will always be hit on. But he was also a family man. And last night, one of the most touching moments of the evening was when he thanked his son Gus, his daughter Hope, and his wife, and the way that his son responded touched the heart of nearly every family in America, because that young man stood up with tears in his eyes and proudly said, "That's my dad." But the way he did it, it was so emotional. That was an emotional moment. Can Kamala Harris produce that kind of emotional moment tonight? Let's wait and see. Can she deliver on what everything that has been said about her? Will she create a campaign of politics, or will she be able to go on and create a movement of joy, which is what many people are hoping that she will be able to do, and still deal with the heavy, tough issues between now and that December 10th date when she has a debate with former President of the United States, Donald Trump.
You're absolutely right, Kelly. I think I speak for a lot of people when I say everyone's really looking forward to her speech tonight to really see what message she's bringing to the public and what policies as well she'll be announcing. So we'll definitely have to stay tuned for that. Thank you, Kelly Wright, so much. Look forward to more reports. Be sure to tune in for our live special coverage of the Nation Decides 2024. We'll take you on the ground there with on-the-ground interviews, in-house analysis, and much more. Join our own Steve Lance and Tiffany Meyer tonight at 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on NTD.
And at the DNC last night, NTD spoke with members of Congress and other officials. Here are the highlights.
Senator Chuck Schumer shared his message for Gen Z with NTD at the DNC.
Gen Z, Harris understands, Walz understands your problems. Down payment for a house, $25,000. All the folks who can afford the monthly payment but can't afford the down payment, we're coming to help you.
Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro told NTD's Kelly Wright his hope for America is protecting fundamental freedoms.
And that we recognize that e pluribus unum out of many one is not just something from our past, but our direction for our future. And with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz leading the way, I know we're going to know that at the ballot box in November.
Actor Wendell Pierce says he loves the Harris-Walz ticket and thinks their policies are great for the working class. He says he's been out raising money and campaigning.
The immediacy of people's excitement just go to show you that it was pent up and waiting to be released. And so ultimately the decision was not only noble, but very effective. And so I think the party is energized and we're ready to leave here in 2 days and go out and on the campaign trail and hopefully get them elected on November 5th.
Nebraska's Democratic Party Chair Jane Cleave says they've really been encouraging independents to vote.
Independents now in some states are 50% of the vote. In Nebraska, they're 30% of the vote. So for our party, we've been really encouraging independents to vote in our primary. We even made that a party rule where you don't have to be a Democrat to vote in our primary. We welcome independents. And so you'll see specific targeting of ads, independents, voter guides to independents, and vote by mail applications. So, these may sound foreign to folks that are listening, but these are basically the technical tools that we as a party use to reach voters in order to make sure that they have the information on how to vote, because that's a big barrier sometimes for voters who have felt like they're on the sidelines.
Former Lieutenant Governor of Wisconsin Mandela Barnes says polarization continues to be an issue in the country.
And one thing that also leads to polarization is rigged maps, is gerrymandering, because so many of our state legislative races, and many even in Congress, come down to a battle of primary challenges. It's who can get past the primary, who so often ends up holding a seat for as long as they want. And if you are racing to be the most extreme, then it doesn't really serve the American people. But folks aren't actually as polarized as our politics will make it seem. Another thing leading to that is money in politics. An obscene amount of money gets spent every single election cycle, and some of the rhetoric that comes as a result of that spending through advertising, it turns a lot of people off. And when people don't show up to vote, that's when democracy gets destabilized.
Representative Al Green says he expects Vice President Harris to do two things during her DNC speech today: thank President Biden and say a lot more about herself.
Make sure that people understand who she is, what she intends to do, and how she intends to get it done. I think she can do these things.
Harris will accept the Democratic Party's nomination in a speech tonight. Pop star Pink is headlining the final night of the DNC.
The counter policy program run by the Republican Party continues in Chicago. Former Republican presidential candidate, entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy spoke today, centering on hot topic issues including national security, the economy, and also the border crisis. Take a look.
Most people who cross the Mexican southern border did not actually start in Mexico. So this is something that should be concerning to every American. When I visited the southern border, and President Trump is going to be at the southern border, I believe, later today. When I visited the southern border the day before, there were 2 Lebanese men who had tried to cross that southern border. Long before, there was a woman from North Korea that was almost smuggled in like a bag. This is a country where you could actually seek asylum through the front door in the United States, and yet chose not to. The fact that you chose not to come as a refugee or seeking asylum, but instead hidden in a bag through the southern border from places like North Korea or Lebanon, I think reveals that this is also a national security threat to the future of the United States. So if you are somebody coming from China or Lebanon to cross the southern border, and then you see the possibility of Donald Trump coming back to office and completing the southern border wall and moving U.S. resources to the southern border, what are they starting to do? They're starting to skate to where the puck is going. To say that, you know what, the sophisticated ones might say that they're going to go to the northern border, enter Canada, and then come down via the Canadian border. That's not a theory, that's a reality. We've seen more northern border crossings in certain parts of our northern border region this last year than the last 12 years combined. Just last year, there was more fentanyl captured at the northern border of the United States than would be required to kill 3 million Americans. So is this a real issue? You're darn right it is. And I do think that China, are they blithely ignorant about this? Of course they're not. They're providing the precursors to synthetic fentanyl to Mexican drug cartels that are pumping that across our own southern border, exploiting the very policies brought to you by the current administration that's in charge. And just as I challenge
Independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he'll be addressing the nation tomorrow.
There's speculation he may drop out of the race.
His campaign is reportedly considering endorsing former President Trump. His running mate, Nicole Shanahan, mentioned the possibility in an interview on Tuesday.
Kennedy's campaign has struggled with legal challenges, financial difficulties, and low polling numbers. RFK's announcement will be live streamed from Phoenix on X and other social media channels. Trump is also scheduled to speak in the same area on the same day.
Ahead of the Democratic National Convention that's continuing today, former President Trump posted several AI-generated images on social media that appear to show support for the Republican candidate.
NTD's Andrew Thomas has the details on that.
Trump has been having some fun on social media, posting and reposting a series of images produced using artificial intelligence. One seemingly depicts Vice President Kamala Harris addressing what looks like a communist rally in Chicago. The post features a hammer and sickle, a symbol of the political ideology, on a red banner in the background. That followed his repost of a fake video of himself dancing next to tech titan Elon Musk. Just before the convention kicked off, Trump reposted an image of Taylor Swift in an Uncle Sam outfit. The post included text saying, "Taylor wants you to vote for Donald Trump." In his repost of the image, Trump declared, "I accept." Another AI-generated image showed women in Swifties for Trump shirts, a reference to the artist's passionate fans. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Coming up, 5 bodies were found from the yacht of British tech magnate Mike Lynch. We have that story and more after the break.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. You may know me from my many years on television. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I felt this slight pressure on my chest, just slight. I thought, oh, it's nothing, it'll go away. I didn't get it. I did not get it. A few days later, while shopping at a boutique, that pressure returned, much stronger. It felt like an elephant pressing on my chest. I had a 90% blockage in my main artery and a 75% blockage in the adjacent artery. I was rushed into surgery where I received 2 stents in my arteries. Stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. That's why I'm in front of you today, asking you to join me in supporting the American Heart Association by becoming a monthly donor. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough. Get the next person trained in CPR, the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. I'm so grateful to the American Heart Association. Their research helped save my life. I can enjoy life with my children, my grandchildren, and my friends. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, and your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special t-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives. Please, listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did. So please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now. Join me as a monthly donor today and help save even more lives. Thank you.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
They're just young people, hungry, homeless, and vulnerable. Covenant House is helping young adults facing homelessness. We're providing safe shelter to thousands, but the need is overwhelming. Please call or go online now. With your gift of $19 a month, we'll send you this blanket as a reminder of the comfort your gift provides a young person tonight. You'll provide safe shelter, hot meals, and medical care. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
Welcome back to Newsroom. We have some updates on the sunken yacht near Sicily. 4 bodies were found yesterday. The yacht belonged to British tech magnate Mike Lynch's family. Christy Kilburn reports.
Britain's Daily Telegraph reported that 2 of the dead were Lynch and his 18-year-old daughter, while Italy's Corriere della Sera said the only bodies identified so far were Morgan Stanley banker Jonathan Bloomer and U.S. lawyer Chris Mervillo. Local authorities in Sicily declined to comment. Rescue officials have been looking for 6 missing people. CCTV footage captured the moment the luxury yacht anchored off the port of Porticello near Palermo capsized during a fierce storm on Monday. The video obtained by Giornale di Sicilia shows the lights of the ship's mast disappearing into the darkness. Reuters was not able to independently verify the location and date of the footage, but was able to confirm the design of the Bayesian, which matched file imagery. Experts have been at a loss to explain how a large luxury vessel, expected to have top-class fittings and safety features, could have sunk within minutes, as recounted by witnesses. To understand what might have happened, the Italian Coast Guard said it was using a remotely operated vehicle to inspect the seabed and take underwater pictures and videos. Another yacht anchored next to the Bayesian was unharmed by the tempest. Of the 22 people on board, 15 survived. The body of onboard chef, Canadian Antiguan Ricaldo Thomas, was found near the wreck hours after the disaster. The fire department described the operation as long and complex, saying that efforts have been hampered by very confined spaces inside the wreck.
Before his death, Mike Lynch had been trying to move past a Silicon Valley scandal that tarnished his legacy as a British tech icon.
That's right. Lynch struck gold when he sold Autonomy, a software company he founded, to Hewlett-Packard for $11 billion in 2011. However, the deal quickly soured after he was accused of inflating Autonomy's value to secure the sale. A decade-long legal battle followed, leading to Lynch's extradition from the UK to face criminal charges of orchestrating a massive fraud in the US. Lynch denied any wrongdoing, claiming he was scapegoated for Hewlett-Packard's own failures. The trial ended up vindicating Lynch, and he pledged to return to the UK and explore new ways to innovate. Although he avoided a possible prison sentence, Lynch still faced a civil case in London, which Hewlett-Packard mostly won during 2022. While damages are yet to be determined, HP is seeking $4 billion. Lynch made more than $800 million from the Autonomy sale. Next, a New York man is charged with operating as an illegal agent for the Chinese regime. The Department of Justice announced the case against Yuan Jun Tong yesterday. Tong is accused of spying on Chinese pro-democracy activists and dissidents in the U.S. between 2018 and 2023. He allegedly took orders from China's Ministry of State Security. The DOJ claims he provided information about individuals viewed as threats to China, including infiltrating a group chat used by Chinese dissidents. Tong is a former Chinese citizen. He was once imprisoned for his activities as a dissident there. He was granted asylum and later became a U.S. citizen. Beijing has denied the allegations. Former President Trump is set to speak in Cochise County, Arizona shortly. He'll highlight the border crisis the same day Vice President Kamala Harris accepts her party's nomination. Joining us now to discuss is Pinal County Sheriff Mark Lamb. Good to have you, Sheriff. It's great to see you again. What are you hoping to hear from Trump today?
Well, look, President Trump, we had the pleasure of working under President Trump 4 years before this administration came in office, and it was the best we'd ever seen. The amount of fentanyl was much lower. The amount of people that coming across this border was much lower. Our communities felt better. And he was doing everything he could for border security. The other thing he did was he actually spent time with sheriffs. He would have us come to D.C. He comes to the border, just like what you're seeing today in Cochise County. To the contrary, this administration has yet to meet with a single sheriff. Why? Because it's just not that important to them. So the idea that Kamala Harris would change now, she's directly responsible for what we're seeing. The idea that she would change now is ridiculous. So what I hope to hear from President Trump is what he's done for the last, what he did for 4 years and what he'll do again when he gets back in office, because I think that's what Americans want to hear. What will you do when you get back in office?
Yeah, speaking of what you'll do when you get back in office, I mean, this is a key topic at the DNC unfolding right now. A Democratic talking point there is that Trump directed Republicans to kill, that Senate border bill that was attempted to pass earlier this year, saying that he's not actually interested in fixing the border, but more interested in using the border crisis as a political issue. I'm wondering how you view that piece of legislation that was shot down.
Well, first of all, the media and everybody else that says that, that's political BS. Not only was I glad that President Trump voiced his opposition to it, I was a strong opponent to it, as were many sheriffs, many border sheriffs, the Border Patrol agents. We didn't want this. This was not a good bill. First of all, it was not a border bill, contrary to what they want to tell you. This was a political ploy. They wrapped it in with global funding for Ukraine and Israel. And then when the Republicans said, no, we can't do this, they took out the border part. The border bill was more about not solving the problem. It was throwing money at the symptoms of the problem. It had money for teaching Border Patrol agents DEI nonsense. It codified into law really bad behavior. If I ask anybody, Republican, Democrat, or Independent, what is the acceptable amount of laws we should allow to be broken at the southern border, the answer should be 0, not 2,500 for 7 days in a row. That's unacceptable behavior, and they wanted to codify that into law. Not to mention the amount of money they had going, $2.3 billion going to NGOs here in this country, and another $9+ billion going to NGOs through the State Department, through the UN, who has already admitted that they are providing gift cards and cash to people coming into this country illegally. And that money was earmarked for global migration. So on many levels, and I could go on for a few more minutes of why we shouldn't have had that bill, I was glad that bill was killed. They continue to blame President Trump, but there were so many of us that understood just how bad this bill was, and I'm glad it died.
And staying with this bill, after it was shot down, President Joe Biden issued an executive order to shut down the border if more than 2,500 people crossed per day. What has been the impact of that executive order?
Well, look, their timing was very fortunate for them because they did it right at the beginning of the summer. So we always see a decline in numbers through these months, through May, June, July, August. These are the hottest months. So we always see a decline. So we have seen a decline. I do believe that some of the policy has made a difference because messaging matters. If they would have done this all along for the last 3.5+ years, the messaging they put out, if they would have done that from the beginning, it would have had a better impact. But their messaging has been poor. Their execution of the policies has been poor. Their policies have stunk. Kamala Harris being right there lockstep with Joe Biden on all of this. So while we see a slight reduction, I would attribute it more of it to the weather, to the summer, to the natural flow of immigration through these months. And I expect that it will probably go up, especially if they see that Donald Trump is going to be elected. You might see another mad rush to the border.
Sheriff, we just have a few seconds here. What is the #1 policy you'd like to see either of these candidates implement if they're elected in November?
You have to kill these asylum claims. You've got to restore the Remain in Mexico program. We cannot continue to let people come on false asylum claims that will be overturned later on.
All right, Cochise County Sheriff Mark Lamb, thank you so much for your time. It's good to see you once again.
Good to see you as well. Thank you.
Now for a look at some voting issues, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton announces an investigation into organizations allegedly registering non-citizens to vote in violation of state and federal laws. In a statement yesterday, Paxton said his office conducted undercover operations near driver's license offices. It found nonprofits assisting with voter registrations, raising concerns about their motives. Paxton emphasized that Texas citizens already have the chance to register when obtaining or renewing IDs. Similar investigations are happening in other states, including Ohio and Alabama. Thousands of non-citizens have been found on voter rolls in those states. Guatemalan police have arrested 7 Guatemalans accused of smuggling 53 migrants who died of asphyxiation back in 2022. They perished in an abandoned tractor trailer in the scorching Texas heat that summer. The latest arrests were after a years-long investigation into the deaths. The dead included 8 children. The suspects include the alleged ringleader of the smuggling gang. The United States has requested his extradition. Police said they also seized vehicles and cash and rescued other migrants during the operation. Authorities also said the smugglers were aware that the trailer's air conditioning unit was malfunctioning. When the trailer was opened in San Antonio, 48 migrants were already dead. Another 16 were taken to hospitals where 5 more died.
I remember that. That was absolutely shocking. Next, a federal court has ruled the military can't keep HIV-positive people out. Legal decisions have been chipping away at the Defense Department's stance on HIV for years. The latest ruling by a federal judge on Tuesday broadly bars the military from preventing anyone with HIV from enlisting. The judge said that's because HIV-positive people with undetectable viral loads can perform any military duty. According to the Centers for Disease Control, undetectable people cannot transmit the virus. The Defense Department has argued providing medicine to keep those viral loads undetectable would cost the military too much money. It also said deployment could cause individuals to experience viral rebound if they don't stick to their medication regimes that manage the infection.
Coming up next, Canada's 2 largest freight railroads lock out 9,000 Teamsters, causing operations to grind to a halt. Find out what key industries in the U.S. could be affected after the break.
According to ancient Chinese medicine, purslane is considered a medicinal herb and is used to help lower cholesterol, improve vascular functions, and prevent diabetes. Perilla seeds can nourish the lungs and spleen. It is used to treat asthma and improve pulmonary functions. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds from Hwangmae Mountain in South Korea. It contains over 90% of omega-3, 6, 7, and 9, the highest concentration possible without chemical additives. The soft gel is made of natural seaweed. It is 100% organic and vegan. Both adults and children can take it with peace of mind. Ancient recipes were passed down from heaven to bring prosperity and longevity. Puritang green vegetable omega-3.
This is such a gentle painting, so beautifully portrayed. A group of people reading together in this simple, everyday-looking living room. A young girl reading along with an adult, a grandparent sitting in the lotus position, a businessman in his typical suit.
You see all those people, they look like they have quietly settled down there. And you as a viewer, it looks like you've just stepped in the door.
You can't see what it is they're reading, so you're a little bit curious and you're kind of invited to walk in.
This harmonious feeling is not by accident. It is the very subject of the work. The book they are reading is the main text of Falun Gong, which is an ancient Chinese spiritual discipline in the Buddhist tradition. At the core of Falun Gong are the values of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. Unfortunately, the practice is banned in China, where the artist resides. Thousands have been killed for their faith. Golden energy blooms into the room as a result of their steadfast faith. The painting on the back wall reminds us of this work's title, Plum Blossoms in a Muddy World.
It's also a metaphor for the practitioners that are sitting in the room as plum blossoms.
They signify perseverance and hope that all brutal winters end and life is renewed once again.
The magical painting.
Welcome back. The number of Americans applying for unemployment benefits rose slightly last week. The Labor Department said jobless claims rose 4,000 to a total of 232,000. That's for the week ending August 17th. The latest data should continue to ease concerns about the rapid deterioration of the labor market. The Federal Reserve is closely monitoring the situation as layoffs remain low, but hiring was slowed. The Fed is expected to begin cutting interest rates next month. And Canada's two largest freight railroads have shut down temporarily. They're telling 9,000 union members to stay home as contract negotiations drag on. 30% of the railroad's freight travels over the U.S.-Canada border, so the lockout could have serious consequences for both economies. Economists estimate potential losses in the billions if the shutdown continues. Key industries like agriculture, the auto industry, and energy could face disruptions. The railroads say the lockout is necessary to finalize the negotiations. If they drag on, we could see more severe disruptions during the peak fall shipping season. The Teamsters Union says contract demands by the railroads would hurt the workers' well-being and safety. But the railroads argue that every proposal put forward has exceed what Canada requires by law. Here is Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
They are going to be impacted if a shutdown of the rail system continues for much longer. And that's something that is an impact right across the country, from workers to businesses to farmers to consumers who are going to be impacted. That's why we are on this. We're taking it so seriously. The minister is engaged directly. We are not taking this lightly, obviously, because Canadians across the country are worried about it. And we will have more to say shortly on what we're doing to make sure that the right solution is found quickly for the economy.
Thank you.
Merci tout le monde.
Back in the U.S., a death penalty battle is currently playing out. Attorneys for Boston Marathon bomber Jahar Tsarnaev are seeking to remove the judge overseeing the legal fight over his death sentence. The bomber's lawyers said yesterday that District Court Judge George O'Toole should be recused from the case. They say the judge has commented about the case on podcasts and at public events during the appeals process. O'Toole scheduled a hearing on the recusal request for next month. A federal appeals court in March ordered O'Toole to investigate the defense's claims of juror bias and to determine whether Tsarnaev's death sentence should stand. A New Mexico judge may be considering setting the weapons handler for the film Rust free or giving her a retrial. This comes after charges against actor Alec Baldwin were dropped last month. Back in March, Hannah Gutierrez was convicted of involuntary manslaughter in the death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins on the movie set. But the prosecution has been in turmoil since the case against Baldwin on the same charges collapsed. It was revealed police and prosecutors had withheld potential evidence from Baldwin's lawyers. Gutierrez's lawyers filed a motion to get her released from prison, where she is serving an 18-month sentence. The judge has set late September hearing to decide her fate.
Most of the U.S. consume news online, probably from places like Facebook or Google. Well, Google will now fund California newsrooms, and that has some journalists worried. Let's take a look.
In a first-in-the-nation deal, Google will commit $250 million over 5 years to fund newsrooms in California. The public-private deal between the tech giant and the state also includes funding for artificial intelligence, which some journalists have warned poses a threat to their jobs. The agreement ends a battle between Google and state lawmakers on how to fund local newsrooms. Lawmakers will now drop a proposed bill that would have forced companies like Google and Meta to pay news organizations for distributing their content. The bill, known as the California Journalism Preservation Act, was modeled after similar laws implemented in Australia and Canada. It would have funded local news organizations that have seen their business models collapse amid the rise of big tech platforms. Since the bill was introduced last year, Google has ran numerous ads opposing it. It also temporarily blocked content from several California-based news outlets. The bill's author, Oakland Assemblymember Buffy Wicks, also helped broker this latest deal with Google. She said this new agreement is the best way to get money into the hands of news publishers without having to go through the legislative process. But some associations representing news staff criticized the deal, calling it disastrous. The Media Guild of the West, which represents hundreds of journalists and media workers in California, Arizona, and Texas, filed a letter in opposition to the deal. It reads, "The future of journalism should not be decided in backroom deals." The legislature embarked on an effort to regulate monopolies and failed terribly. Another trade association, News Media Alliance, said the announcement, quote, "reinforces the need for federal legislation and potential court remedies to address this broken marketplace." The association, which represents approximately 2,000 news organizations, said Google is a monopoly that reaps significant revenue by scraping and repackaging news content. Several California lawmakers also criticized the agreement. State Senator Steve Glazer said it doesn't provide sufficient resources to rescue independent news gathering in California. However, California Governor Gavin Newsom hailed the agreement and said it will ensure the survival of newsrooms in the state.
A passenger was arrested today at an Australian airport after he exited a plane through an emergency exit, walked along a wing, and then climbed down a jet engine to the tarmac. In a statement, police said the man was arrested for alleged aggressive behavior and breaching aircraft safety protocols. Officials said the plane arrived at Melbourne Airport from Sydney and was parked at a terminal gate when the man left the aircraft by the right side exit. The man walked along the wing and climbed down one of the Airbus's 2 engines. Visuals captured by passengers circulating on social media show an open emergency door on the plane. The plane's emergency slide was visible from the terminal after they disembarked. Melbourne Airport said the man was detained by aircrew and ground staff before police arrested him. He was assessed by paramedics and taken to a hospital where he remains for further assessment, the police said in a statement. Coming up next, an alleged attack on a nuclear plant. Russia is accusing Ukraine of having tried to attack a nuclear power plant. The steps Russia is now taking to investigate the issue. That and more after the break.
Did you know indoor air quality can be 5 to even 100 times worse than outdoors? Meet the Air Doctor. It's your answer for clean air and the only hospital-grade air purifier equipped with advanced Ultra HEPA filters, proven to improve your indoor air quality and overall health. Air Doctor circulates and triple filters the air in your room up to 5 times per hour. Say goodbye to pollen, smoke, mold spores, pet dander, even viruses, because the Ultra HEPA filter removes virtually 100% of dangerous contaminants down to 0.003 microns. That's 100 times smaller filtration than ordinary HEPA purifiers. This would have been in your lungs. Finally, get relief from allergies and asthma and reduce airborne disease.
It's pulling the pollutants out. It's even pulling the toxic chemicals that our cleaning products leave behind.
Call or go to tryair40.com now. Get 40% off our best-selling air purifier.
Call 1-800-876-0163. Call now.
师傅讲过，过去武术的身法，你上阵的，你要是身法你保持好了，你就失去了生命。
Are today's mainstream martial arts not traditional martial arts?
现在有些人他学说传统武术，他尤其是西方人，他不懂。为什么我们要举行大赛呢？因为新唐人他就是要提倡传统武术，复兴中华5000年的传统文化。传统武术，真正的传统武术是讲武德的。我相信有一点。 就是守住武德，就有人教。
Eva Marie smoked 12,000 packs of cigarettes over 15 years. She quit, and now there's a new lung cancer screening that could save her life. You stopped smoking, now start screening. No matter how much you smoked, early detection could save you. Talk to your doctor or learn more at savedbythescan.org.
The 7th NTD International Piano Competition will take place at the Kaufman Music Center in New York City. Pianists from around the world will come together to revive the great piano masterpieces. Join us on this uplifting journey. The semifinals, finals, and the winner's concert will be open to audiences and live streamed from October 17th to the 19th. Get tickets now at 212-501-3330.
Thanks for staying with us. Ahead of Vice President Kamala Harris's speech tonight at the Democratic National Convention, former President Trump will tour the southern border and highlight what he calls migrant crime in a warning to voters.
Joining us now live is NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao, who's at the U.S.-Mexico border in Arizona. Good afternoon, Iris. Who's Trump meeting there, and what are we expecting to hear?
Good afternoon to both of you. So we are right here near the border wall in Tucson, Arizona. We're just feet away from the barrier that separates us from the U.S. and Mexico. Meanwhile, Trump's visit comes as he's been on a week-long battleground state blitz this week as counter-programming during the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. And today we expect him to give a speech right here at around 12 p.m. local time or 3 p.m. Eastern time. And that's after he tours the border along with some officials and also meets with victims who has lost loved ones due to murder or attack by illegal immigrants. And meanwhile, Trump has been vowing in recent rallies that he's going to launch the largest domestic deportation in history if and when he gets back to the White House. And just earlier this week, he also says he's going to shift massive resources from law enforcement to immigration enforcement, and that is to kick out criminals immediately. But also during a speech about crime this week in Michigan, Trump says he's not going to be a radical, but rather still would allow a lot of people to come in, but it just has to be done legally. And today we expect Trump to touch on similar themes as he goes on to take aim at Vice President Kamala Harris's record on the border, including the economy and other issues. And we know that for the past few days during the DNC, Democrats, meanwhile, have been attacking Trump for telling Republicans earlier this year to block a bipartisan Senate deal, which Trump criticized as being too weak. And right now we're hearing helicopters right here above us, which means that Trump could be coming close very soon. And today's speech also comes as Trump has been going to different battleground states. Tomorrow he's going to another area in Arizona called Glendale, and he's also going to give a speech in Las Vegas. All this is part of his counter-programming. And tonight, during Kamala Harris's speech during the DNC, he's also going to do a live play-by-play on Truth Social to counter-respond. Back to you.
Thank you, Iris Tao, reporting there from the Arizona border. Seems like a lot is going on. We look forward to hearing more.
Next, China has indicted a Japanese businessman for spying. The man has been detained since last year. The move is likely to increase foreign companies' concerns about Beijing's anti-espionage law. Beijing confirmed the indictment today without identifying the person and the specific accusation. The man is believed to be an employee of Japanese pharmaceutical company Astellas Pharma. At least 17 Japanese citizens have been detained under China's anti-espionage law introduced in 2014. 3 of them have been found guilty. Due to the Chinese court system's lack of transparency, it's not clear how they were detained or what they did to violate the law.
The U.S. Navy is upsetting China. A U.S. destroyer sailed through the Taiwan Strait today. This is the narrow waterway dividing the communist Chinese mainland and the self-governed democratic island of Taiwan. The U.S. Navy said the maneuver was simply a regular routine transit done in accordance with international law. But Beijing is unhappy. It warned the U.S. ship not to engage in what it called a publicity stunt. The Chinese Communist Party views Taiwan, including the strait, as its own territory, although it has never ruled it. Taiwan's government rejects China's sovereignty claims and says only the island's people can decide its future. China has never ruled out using military force to bring Taiwan under its control. And tomorrow, Taiwan's president will visit the Kinmen Islands that sit right next to the Chinese coast. This is going to be his first visit there since taking office back in May.
A new report found Britain is sending foreign aid to parts of China and other nations that are richer than regions of the UK, even giving to an all-female opera group in Shanghai. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more for us on that.
British taxpayers' money is being used to fund projects in areas of China, Mexico and Malaysia that are wealthier than parts of the UK. That's according to a new report by the Institute of Economic Affairs, or IEA. Managing editor for the think tank, Daniel Freeman, shared some of the findings.
A project to encourage UA opera in Shanghai, which spent £200,000 over 3 years in that region. And Shanghai, as many of viewers will know, is a region that is, relatively wealthy by international standards.
The paper identified 8 regions were receiving foreign aid, despite having a GDP per capita higher than the UK's poorest region. The wealthiest city to get British money, Ordos in China's Inner Mongolia region, received
£240,000 on earthquake resilience.
But Ordos has a GDP per capita of $35,000, which is higher than 69 regions in the UK. The IEA said this allocation of development funds to wealthy regions means less money for poorer parts of the world, and that it undermines efforts to tackle global poverty. The report calls for a re-evaluation of aid priorities.
Currently, there are requirements that aid is spent in countries that have a national GDP of lower than about $14,000.
However, countries have big regional differences. On average, the country may be below the threshold, but some regions will be wealthier and above the requirement. The paper recommends a 2-step assessment process. First at the country level, as happens now, and then also at the regional level. This would
ensure that the aid is targeted specifically at those regions where it's most needed.
Aid spent this way could have a more effective impact on reducing global poverty. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
Coming up, former President Trump goes to the border in Arizona. He's expected to give remarks like we've heard from Iris Tao earlier. We'll have that and more after the break.
Will radical lies determine your child's future, or will timeless truths? Fathom the Good equips children with wisdom against the world. Our homeschool curriculum teaches high schoolers to think critically. We provide primary texts, original content, reasoning tools, and mentoring videos to help them transform America. Teach your children to navigate the world's woke confusion. Teach them to fathom the good.
If you're watching this, I didn't make it. Thanks to people like you and the American Heart Association, my family never had to see this video. I was a healthy 47-year-old, no symptoms, But then my doctor discovered I had a bad heart valve that was beyond repair. The scariest day of my life was when I was sitting on a gurney as I looked and my wife was at my side and my kids had me surrounded. Deep down, you know, this could be it. This could be all there is.
Not having him around for Riley to grow up with and have that papa figure in his life, that would have been hard.
This little heart valve did something really big. It saved my life. I wouldn't be here today without it. The research for this heart valve was funded by the American Heart Association. And that's why I'm asking you to become a monthly donor for just $19 a month. When you do, you'll help fund the next medical breakthrough that could save your life or the life of someone you love. You'll also provide life-saving CPR training and help certify hospitals to give the best care to those who have had a heart attack or stroke. When you give $19 a month, we'll send you a t-shirt just like this one. From the moment you put it on, you'll help raise awareness for heart disease and stroke. Since my surgery, I had a son get married. I had a daughter graduate high school. I had another daughter give birth to a precious boy. I would have missed all that. And that's why it's personal for me.
We're very thankful for everyone who is a donor because it gives us more time.
Every 40 seconds, someone has a heart attack. The next person you help save could be someone you love or even you. Become a monthly donor today by calling or going to helpheart.org because it's personal.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G.
And I'm Chris Beers.
Former President Trump goes to the border in Arizona. We're waiting to hear his remarks.
Are non-citizens registering non-citizens to vote in Texas? The Lone Star State's Attorney General announces an investigation into organizations allegedly doing just that.
Former President Trump is having some fun on social media. He posts several AI-generated images that appear to show support for his presidential campaign.
A pivotal moment for the U.S. economy and the Federal Reserve. More people are anticipating an interest rate cut ahead of a key address.
A massive Canadian rail strike stops hundreds of supply-carrying trains right in their tracks. Massive economic damage if they don't move soon.
0% APR auto deals are rolling out left and right across the country. Stick around to see if any work for you.
British tech tycoon Mike Lynch's body has been recovered. We take a look at his drawn-out court battle with Hewlett-Packard, where he was cleared of criminal charges.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Trump allies Vivek Ramaswamy and former Ambassador Carlos Trujillo talked about immigration today. NTD's Jason Blair was at this press conference. He's bringing us some more on this topic.
Vivek Ramaswamy gave a talk at Trump Tower, just miles away from where the DNC is happening here in Chicago. He said that up to hundreds of thousands of migrant kids have made their way across the border that are unaccounted for. He said the real number is not known, and unfortunately, he says that many of these kids have been subject to human trafficking. He said a true leader would take responsibility for the current border issue. He also brought up and said that most people who are coming across the southern border did not start out nearby. They are coming from across the world, some of them like from countries like China, and slowly making their way up eventually across the southern border. Some other things he said is he praised Trump for having real clear policies, and he demands the same thing from Harris. He also said coming into this election is no ordinary election. It is about, quote, who we are as a nation. He says Trump is the one to unite the country through action, not just words. And when asked about the most crucial battleground state issues, he said without a doubt our economy and the border crisis. And the DNC is happening a few miles away from Ramaswamy's talk. Pro-Palestinian protesters have been continuing through the week. The numbers so far have been lower than previously estimated. Police said that on Tuesday, 56 were arrested after some violent clashes with officers. Wednesday night, it was reported that over 2,000 protesters marched near where the Democratic National Convention is being held. Chicago Superintendent Larry Snelling said that there were no arrests and no injuries on Wednesday. Authorities said that they are not changing any tactics with the protesters, and they are ready for the final days of the DNC, where protests are still expected to continue. Reporting in Chicago, Illinois, Jason Blair, NTD News.
Thank you for that report, Jason. Now, independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will address the nation tomorrow.
There's speculation he may drop out of the race.
His campaign is reportedly considering endorsing former President Trump. His running mate, Nicole Shanahan, mentioned the possibility in an interview on Tuesday.
Kennedy's campaign has struggled with legal challenges, financial difficulties, and low polling numbers. RFK Jr.'s announcement will be live streamed from Phoenix on X and other social media channels. Trump is also scheduled to speak in the same area on the same day.
Now, a look at some voting issues. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton announces an investigation into organizations allegedly registering non-citizens to vote in violation of state and federal laws. In a statement yesterday, Paxton said his office conducted undercover operations near driver's license offices. It found nonprofits assisting with voter registrations, raising concerns about their motives. Paxton emphasized that Texas citizens already have the chance to register when obtaining or renewing IDs. Similar investigations are happening in other states, including Ohio and Alabama. Thousands of non-citizens have been found in voter rolls in those states.
The Arkansas Supreme Court upheld the state's rejection of signature petitions for abortion rights ballot initiative today. This keeps the proposal from going before voters in November. The ruling blocked Arkansans from limited government who had submitted petitions from placing a constitutional amendment measure on the ballot. This in a predominantly Republican state where many leaders are opposed to abortion. Election officials said the group behind the measure did not properly submit documentation regarding the signatures gathered it hired. The group disputed that claim and said it should have been given more time to provide any additional documents needed. Arkansas currently bans abortion at any time during a pregnancy unless the woman's life is endangered due to a medical emergency.
Ahead of the Democratic National Convention this week, former President Trump posted several AI-generated images on social media that appear to show support for the Republican candidate.
NTD's Andrew Thomas has those details.
Trump has been having some fun on social media, posting and reposting a series of images produced using artificial intelligence. One seemingly depicts Vice President Kamala Harris addressing what looks like a communist rally in Chicago. The post features a hammer and sickle, a symbol of the political ideology, on a red banner in the background. That followed his repost of a fake video of himself dancing next to tech titan Elon Musk. Just before the convention kicked off, Trump reposted an image of Taylor Swift in an Uncle Sam outfit. The post included text saying, "Taylor wants you to vote for Donald Trump." In his repost of the image, Trump declared, "I accept." Another AI-generated image showed women in Swifties for Trump shirts, a reference to the artist's passionate fans. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
The Chicks will perform the national anthem tonight at the DNC, this according to CNN. The country music group, formerly known as the Dixie Chicks, is set to take the stage on the convention's closing night. In 2003, before the invasion of Iraq, lead singer Natalie Maines spoke out against the war at a concert. She also said the group, which got its start in Dallas, was ashamed that then-President George W. Bush was from Texas. The remarks triggered boycotts and backlash from fans. The Chicks also performed at the virtual 2020 DNC during the pandemic.
A Democratic delegate from Texas was walking with a friend when he was robbed at gunpoint yesterday. This happened in downtown Chicago. CWB Chicago reported the delegate was in town for the Democratic National Convention. He and his friend were walking near a hotel used by convention delegates when a gunman wearing a ski mask appeared. The news outlet reported that the delegate was forced to hand over his wallet and room key before the robber crossed the street and targeted a man and a woman. Police are investigating. No arrests have been reported so far.
Be sure to tune in for our live special coverage of The Nation Decides 2024. We'll take you there with on-the-ground interviews, in-house analysis, and more. Join our own Steve Lance and Tiffany Meyer tonight at 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on NTD. Coming up, federal officials are investigating a fiery Tesla semi-crash on a California freeway. Their focus, lithium-ion batteries.
And British tech tycoon Mike Lynch's body was recovered. We take a look at his drawn-out court battle with Hewlett-Packard, where he was cleared of criminal charges. We'll have that and more after the break.
Sama at راسي هذا الشباب راح كثير رعب وطبعا هلا يعني أنا بحس بالرعب الكبير بدنا بس نعيش بأمان.
Conflict is raging across the world, and millions of children's lives are being devastated by war, hunger, disease, and poverty. We urgently need your help to reach children in crisis. Please call or go online to give just $10 a month, only 33 cents a day. We need 1,000 new monthly donors this month to help children in crisis around the world and right here at home. You can help us provide food, essentials, and life-saving medical care to children in the most need.
يعني بدنا نعيش زي كل الأطفال بدنا نعيش بحرية وأمان.
In the darkest times, children suffer the most. You can help by calling right now and giving just $10 a month. All we need are 1,000 monthly donors. Please call or go online now with your monthly gift of just $10. Thanks to generous government grants, every dollar you give can have up to 10 times the impact. And when you call with your credit card, we will send you this Save the Children tote bag as a thank you for your support.
وعيت على هاي الدنيا القصف والنزوح والخيمة. أتمنى نعود على بلادنا. شايف لك إنه هذا مستحيل.
Your small monthly donation of just $10 could be the reason a child in crisis survives. Show them they're not alone. Please call or go online to givetosave.org to help save lives.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
They're just young people, hungry, homeless, and vulnerable. Covenant House is helping young adults facing homelessness. We're providing safe shelter to thousands, but the need is overwhelming. Please call or go online now. With your gift of $19 a month, we'll send you this blanket as a reminder of the comfort your gift provides a young person tonight. You'll provide safe shelter, hot meals, and medical care. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
Welcome back. Housing demand in the U.S. improved in July after declining for months. This as Americans continue to face rising home prices. The National Association of Realtors says sales of previously owned homes grew from 1.3% in July from the month before. That pushed the seasonally adjusted annual rate to nearly 4 million home sales. July's figures broke a 4-month streak of declining sales, but year over year, sales were down 2.5% in July from 2023. The National Association of Realtors says despite the modest gain, home sales are still sluggish. Meanwhile, July saw the 13th month in a row of year-over-year home price increases. Many Americans still find the current housing market quite unaffordable. Home prices remain high along with mortgage rates.
That's right. Many are hoping the Federal Reserve will cut the prime lending rate in September to help address the issue. The number of Americans applying for unemployment benefits rose slightly last week. The Labor Department said jobless claims rose 4,000 to a total of 232,000. That's for the week ending August 17th. The latest data should continue to ease concerns about the rapid deterioration of the labor market. The Federal Reserve is closely monitoring the situation as layoffs remain low, but hiring has slowed. The Fed is expected to begin cutting interest rates next month. Next, a Tesla semi crash and large fire along a California freeway has drawn the attention of federal safety investigators. The National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, says it's sending a team to look into the fire risks of lithium-ion batteries. The team will work with the California Highway Patrol to examine the wreckage. The Los Angeles Times reported that the Tesla rig was traveling on Interstate 80 when it went off the road and crashed into the trees on Monday. The battery caught fire, spewing toxic fumes and reaching a temperature of 1,000 degrees. Highway Patrol told the newspaper that firefighters were forced to wait for the fire to burn out. The driver walked away from the crash and was taken to a hospital. The fire caused the freeway to close down temporarily.
Staying on the road, auto safety regulators have closed one of 2 investigations into General Motors' Cruise self-driving electric vehicles. This comes after the company agreed to do a recall. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says in documents posted on its website today that the probe began back in December of 2022. That was after the agency received reports of inappropriate hard braking and complete stops by Cruise vehicles. Cruise agreed to recall all of its robo-taxis on August 9th of this year for unexpected braking. The company would fix the problem with a software update. In its decision to close the probe, NHTSA said that the updates reduce the risk of unexpected braking with improvements to perception, prediction, and planning. The agency is still investigating reports that Cruise vehicles encroached on pedestrians present in or entering roadways, including crosswalks.
Most of us consume news online, of course, probably from places like Facebook or Google. Well, Google will now fund Californian newsrooms, and that has some journalists worried. Let's take a look.
In a first-in-the-nation deal, Google will commit $250 million over 5 years to fund newsrooms in California. The public-private deal between the tech giant and the state also includes funding for artificial intelligence, which some journalists have warned poses a threat to their jobs. The agreement ends a battle between Google and state lawmakers on how to fund local newsrooms. Lawmakers will now drop a proposed bill that would have forced companies like Google and Meta to pay news organizations for distributing their content. The bill, known as the California Journalism Preservation Act, was modeled after similar laws implemented in Australia and Canada. It would have funded local news organizations that have seen their business models collapse amid the rise of big tech platforms. Since the bill was introduced last year, Google has ran numerous ads opposing it. It also temporarily blocked content from several California-based news outlets. The bill's author, Oakland Assembly member Buffy Wicks, also helped broker this latest deal with Google. She said this new agreement is the best way to get money into the hands of news publishers without having to go through the legislative process. But some associations representing news staff criticized the deal, calling it disastrous. The Media Guild of the West, which represents hundreds of journalists and media workers in California, Arizona, and Texas, filed a letter in opposition to the deal. It reads, "The future of journalism should not be decided in backroom deals." The legislature embarked on an effort to regulate monopolies and failed terribly. Another trade association, News Media Alliance, said the announcement, quote, "reinforces the need for federal legislation and potential court remedies to address this broken marketplace." The association, which represents approximately 2,000 news organizations, said Google is a monopoly that reaps significant revenue by scraping and repackaging news content. Several California lawmakers also criticized the agreement. State Senator Steve Glazer said it doesn't provide sufficient resources to rescue independent news gathering in California. However, California Governor Gavin Newsom hailed the agreement and said it will ensure the survival of newsrooms in the state.
Canada's two largest freight railroads have shut down temporarily. They're telling 9,000 union members to stay home as contract negotiations drag on. 30% of the railroad's freight travel over the U.S.-Canada border, so the lockout could have serious consequences for both the U.S. and the Canadian economies. Economists estimate potential losses in the billions if the shutdown continues. Key industries like agriculture, the auto industry, and energy could face disruptions. The railroads say the lockout is necessary to finalize the negotiations. If they drag on, we could see more severe disruptions during the peak fall shipping season going into the Christmas season. The Teamsters Union says contract demands by the railroads would hurt the workers' well-being and safety, but the railroads argue that every proposal put forward has exceeded what Canada requires by law. Here's Canada Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And we'll have to move on from that.
That's right. A member of the European Parliament is warning Elon Musk that Europe could ban the platform if it doesn't play by the EU's rules.
He said internet service providers could be forced to block the site. NTD's international correspondent David Vivez has the story.
Senior EU representative for Emmanuel Macron, Sandro Gozzi, has a warning for Elon Musk. He says that if Musk's social media platform X doesn't adhere to Europe's Digital Services Act, DSA, it could face massive fines, and it could even be banned entirely in the European Union. This follows a warning from an EU commissioner on August 12th, given before Musk's live interview with Donald Trump. Gozzi stated that the EU Commission could ask European internet service providers to block X as retaliation for Musk not complying with the new EU rules. According to legal expert Professor Guillaume Zambrano, this form of internet censorship has never been seen before in the West.
Le règlement DSA. The legal basis of the principle of net neutrality is a law called the Communications Decency Act, which was adopted by the United States in 1996. It has been imitated worldwide and has become a global standard. It states that internet service providers can't be held responsible for what's published online by users.
Based on Article 6 of the Digital Services Act, as a last resort, the EU Commission is allowed to take down any internet platform if that platform doesn't comply with the Commission's rules.
Internet service providers are only absolved of responsibility for posted content if that content is deleted or unpublished. This is a complex way of saying that there is no exoneration of responsibility for internet service providers. So, internet operators can be sued if they fail to delete content or restrict access to a platform.
The EU Commission began a Digital Services Act probe into X over its handling of disinformation on the social media platform last December. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
The U.S. Navy is upsetting China. A U.S. destroyer sailed through the Taiwan Strait today. That's the narrow waterway dividing the communist Chinese mainland and the self-governed democratic island of Taiwan. The U.S. Navy said the maneuver was simply a regular routine transit done in accordance with international law. But Beijing is unhappy. It warned the U.S. ship not to engage in what it called publicity stunts. The Chinese Communist Party views Taiwan, including the Strait, as its own territory, although it has never ruled it. Taiwan's government rejects China's sovereignty claims and says only the island's people can decide its future. China has never ruled out using military force to bring Taiwan under its control. And tomorrow, Taiwan president will visit the Kinmen Islands that sit right next to the Chinese coast. This will be his first visit there since taking office in May.
Next, a fire at a hotel in South Korea today killed at least 7 people and injured 12 others. Authorities said the blaze began on the 8th floor of the 9-story building south of the capital city of Seoul. 23 guests had been staying at the hotel when the fire broke out. The director of the public health department said that 3 of the injured were in serious condition. Rescue crews found the victims scattered in halls and stairways. A fire official said the number of casualties could increase as emergency workers searched the building. More than 150 firefighters and 46 vehicles were deployed to put out the fire. The fire has been extinguished, and the cause of the blaze is now under investigation. And a fifth body was brought back to land this morning as divers continued to search the wreck of a super yacht that sank off the coast of Sicily. A survivor of the wreck arrived today at the Porticello port. The man entered a white tent where the fifth body retrieved from the sunken boat was moved after having been recovered by rescue divers. Sky News reported that the Italian Coast Guard have identified the 5 bodies retrieved and that British tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch is among them. His 18-year-old daughter, Hannah Lynch, remains unaccounted for. Questions have intensified about why the vessel sank so quickly when a nearby sailboat remained largely unscathed and managed to rescue the survivors.
Before his death, Mike Lynch had been trying to move past a Silicon Valley scandal that tarnished his legacy as a British tech icon.
Lynch struck gold when he sold Autonomy, a software company he founded, to Hewlett-Packard for $11 billion in 2011. However, the deal quickly soured after he was accused of inflating Autonomy's value to secure the sale. A decade-long legal battle followed, leading to Lynch's extradition from the UK to face criminal charges of orchestrating a massive fraud in the US. Lynch denied any wrongdoing, claiming he was scapegoated for Hewlett-Packard's own failures. The trial ended up vindicating Lynch, and he pledged to return to the UK and explore new ways to innovate. He avoided a possible prison sentence. Lynch still faced a civil case in London, which Hewlett-Packard mostly won during 2022. While damages are yet to be determined, HP is seeking $4 billion. Lynch made more than $800 million from the Autonomy sale.
Russia accuses Ukraine of trying to strike a nuclear power plant in the Kursk region. That's as fighting and evacuations continue on both sides of the border.
Here's the latest on that conflict.
Russian President Vladimir Putin on Thursday said Ukraine tried to strike a nuclear power plant in an overnight attack.
The enemy tried to strike the Kursk nuclear power station last night. The International Atomic Energy Agency has been informed. They promised to come themselves, to send specialists to assess the situation.
The International Atomic Energy Agency is the UN watchdog for nuclear safety. On Wednesday, a day before the alleged attack, Russia already said that the head of the watchdog agreed to visit the plant in Kursk.
Rafael Grossi has already confirmed his readiness to visit the Kursk nuclear power plant at the end of August this year. The details of the said visit are currently being worked out.
Last week, Russia's defense ministry accused Ukraine of planning to attack the Kursk plant as part of its ongoing incursion into the Russian region. Ukraine had denied the plans at the time. The governor of the Kursk region on Thursday said that the vast majority of the population had to evacuate the state after Ukraine's incursion.
As of today, 133,000 people left. 20,000 people still remain in the area. We keep resettling people to safe places.
Meanwhile, on the Ukrainian side, evacuations continue in the Donetsk region. Starting Tuesday, authorities ordered mandatory evacuations of families with children in the town of Pokrovsk. The situation in the town is getting worse as Russia's army is advancing fast. Ukraine says there were almost 50 Russian attacks on the Pokrovsk front on Wednesday.
Next, we're going to former President Trump speaking in Cochise County, Arizona, on day 4 of the DNC. Let's watch.
As far as people say, oh, you didn't build the wall, we built the wall. Anticipated to build. We're going to build an extra 200 that I said I was going to do.
Looks like that signal isn't coming in very clear.
Around the edges.
All right, we're going to have to skip that for now. Hopefully we'll come back. When we come back, a massive Canadian rail strike stops hundreds of supply-carrying trains in their tracks. No pun intended. Massive economic damage if they don't move soon.
Considering a new car, we have some 0% APR deals and cashback options. That and more after the break.
My dad's name was David. He always talked about getting life insurance, and now it's too late.
No one was expecting my husband Dave to suffer from a heart attack. We didn't have life insurance. We thought we had more time.
Don't be Dave, and don't wait until it's too late to get the life insurance coverage you need. And if you don't have enough insurance to cover funeral costs, credit card debt, and other expenses, your family is going to get stuck with the bill. Call now to get affordable life insurance.
Just call 800-494-1562.
If you're over 50, you can't be turned down for this insurance, regardless of your health. Plus, there's no medical exam, no health questions. Your rate will never go up. Your coverage will never go down. And rates start as low as $5 a week. Remember, don't be Dave. Call now.
Call now. 800-494-1562.
大提琴不仅仅是一件乐器，它是有生命、有感情的，需要我们精心的照顾。往往我们一个小小的动作，可能都会对人情绪产生微妙的影响。天音的品牌是福星，我们对于传统的理念很荣幸被神韵艺术团选为指定供应商。时间是酿造音色的不可替代的陪伴。我跟大提琴已经有60多年的友情了，每一把琴都有它自己的个性，熟悉它，才能真正发挥它的潜力。所以，我希望给你的每一把琴，都是首先我所信任的。
Welcome back to Newsroom. For today's business matters, we have with us Don Ma here to discuss. Don, how are you today?
I'm doing well.
Talk business to us.
Okay, well, let me get right into it then. So today, talking about a few topics here, and I wanted to stay here first, on the road, that is. Auto safety regulators have closed one of 2 investigations into General Motors' Cruise self-driving electric vehicles, and this comes after the company agreed to do a recall. Now, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says in documents posted on its website today that the probe began in December of 2022, and that was after the agency received reports of inappropriate hard braking and complete stops by Cruise vehicles. Now, Cruise agreed to recall all of its robo-taxis on August 9th of this year for unexpected braking, and the company would fix the problem with the software update. In its decision to close the probe, NHTSA said that the updates reduced the risk of unexpected braking with improvements to perception, prediction, and planning. The agency is still investigating reports that Cruise vehicles encroached on pedestrians present in or entering roadways, including crosswalks. Next, the number of Americans applying for unemployment benefits rose slightly last week. The Labor Department said jobless claims rose 4,000 to a total of 232,000. And that's for the week ending August 17th. So the latest data should continue to ease concerns about the rapid deterioration of the labor market. The Federal Reserve is closely monitoring the situation as layoffs remain low, but hiring has also slowed down. The Fed is expected to begin cutting rates starting next month in September. As well, Verizon has unveiled its latest subscription bundle, which is Netflix and NFL Plus Premium. So the offer starts today, and Verizon says it can save its customers nearly $300 a year. Verizon is going to offer 12 months of Netflix Premium plan for free to customers who purchase 1 year of the National Football League's exclusive premium streaming service. As well, looking ahead, tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, Jackson Hole, Wyoming, will be the epicenter of the U.S. economy. And that's when Fed Chair Jerome Powell is set to give his keynote address at an annual summit. Anticipation is high, especially with recent data reinforcing expectations for a rate cut in September. And the Fed has released minutes from its July policy meeting, which suggests officials are strongly leaning toward a cut, and this is further supported by new signs of a cooling labor market. The Bureau of Labor Statistics recently revised down its annual payroll numbers, marking the steepest preliminary downward revision since the global financial crisis. Now in Canada, two largest railroads having halted. A labor dispute has stranded thousands of supply-carrying train cars with potential harm for the U.S. economy. Here's that story.
Thousands of rail cars stopped dead in their tracks, carrying essential goods such as petroleum products, cars, car parts, grain, timber, chemicals, and fertilizer. Economists warn it could cost the U.S. and Canadian economies billions of dollars. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he's taking it very seriously.
And that's something that is an impact right across the country, from workers to businesses to farmers to consumers.
Nice, thank you. A labor dispute caused the shutdown. Labor union Teamsters Canada was unable to finalize a contract with Canada's two biggest railway companies. So the companies told 9,000 workers to stay home.
CN Rail has locked its employees out, so we're just here for an information picket line.
Rail worker Joel says he believes they'll reach a deal.
We want to go back to work, and we're hoping both the company and our negotiating team can get a deal. We've been on strike in the past, yes. And we've always got to a deal, and I'm confident we'll get to a deal. All we want to do is go back to work.
Teamsters Canada says the two parties are far apart. It says the railway companies are willing to compromise rail safety and tear families apart to earn an extra buck. One of the railroads, Canadian National, says the Teamsters have not shown any desire to reach a deal. The other railroad, CPKC, says the Teamsters keep making unrealistic demands that would impair the railway. The two companies own 80% of Canada's railways. The American Farm Bureau Federation says the stoppage could jeopardize crop production. It says American farmers depend on Canadian agricultural products. This could seriously lower food supply, raising prices even more.
Meanwhile, housing demand in the U.S. improved in July after declining for months, and this as Americans continue to face rising home prices. The National Association of Realtors saying that sales of previously owned homes grew 1.3% in July from the month before, and that pushed the seasonally adjusted annual rate to nearly 4 million home sales. So July's figures broke a 4-month streak of declining sales, but year over year, sales were down 2.5% in July from 2023. The National Association of Realtors says that despite the modest gain, home sales are still a bit sluggish here. Meanwhile, July saw the 13th month in a row of year-over-year home increases. Many Americans still finding the current housing market, a bit unaffordable, if you will. Home prices, remain high along with mortgage rates as well. Many are hoping that the Federal Reserve will cut their prime lending rate in September to help address the issue. With a 7-Eleven buyout offer on the table, fans of the convenience store are a little anxious. The Japanese firm 7&I owns the convenience store chain, offering fresh foods like rice balls, for example, and that's driving its popularity and profitability in Japan. In Japan, 7-Elevens have about a 30% operating margin, according to data. So it is drastically less overseas. Fresh food is seen as a key to fixing low profitability in the U.S. 7 & I has introduced more than 200 food items to its U.S. stores, some distinctly Japanese. 7-Eleven enthusiasts are now concerned a buyout by a Canadian firm could move the store's focus from fresh, high-quality Japanese-style food. Okay, let me just mention Walmart as well today. Is teaming up with Burger King. The retailer will be serving up discounted meal benefits to its members. The company said that the promotions will include 25% off any digital order every day at Burger King, and starting in September, a free Whopper burger every 3 months with any purchase at Burger King, all for Walmart Plus members. And this is an effort to make Walmart services more attractive and compete with Amazon's Prime. The Walmart Plus membership has digital and in-store benefits like free shipping with no minimum order, and it includes a subscription to Paramount Plus as well. So this week, the Harris campaign endorsed a list of tax hikes originally proposed by the Biden administration. Now, the new taxes would give an estimated $5 trillion to the federal government over 10 years. Now, among them is a tax on unrealized capital gains for individuals worth $100 million over that amount. And this is where you would be taxed on your investment even before you have sold and made a profit on them. Now joining me is Vijay Marolia, Chief Investment Officer at Regal Point Capital. Now, Vijay, how are you doing today?
Fantastic, and yourself?
I'm doing well, thank you very much. So to start off, just give us a real easy understanding of how this tax works.
Well, let's start with capital gains tax. It basically is taxed on investment, and usually it's long-term investment. And if you think about what taxes do, taxes tend to act like a punishment. They disincentivize behavior. So actually, I think that it's a really bad idea. And regardless of the rate of the capital gains tax, to try to tax something that's unrealized is actually kind of ridiculous. And the reason why I say that is because, first of all, who's going to value the asset? All right. So valuation, the whole reason why people like me have a job is because there's a difference between price, which is absolute, and value, which is very relative. And so who is going to decide the valuations? I mean, right now, they think that the Mar-a-Lago is worth less than $16 million. So I think it's a little bit ludicrous.
Yeah, okay, I want to comment on that as well. But first, maybe you can answer this. It's only going to target people with over $100 million in assets or worth. So, I mean, is this such a big deal?
It's a huge deal because if you think about it, most of the time, your boss is not poorer than you. And so let's keep in mind that this is going to basically it's going to cause a fire sale. It's going to cause a depression. It's going to cause more than a recession. I think it has zero chance of going through because there are some people, especially the donors in the Democratic Party, that actually do know how to do math. And so I think it's unworkable, regardless of what level you put it on. Because think about it. So where are they going to get that money from? Wealthy people don't have that money sitting in cash. That's ludicrous. Most currency is digital already. All Bitcoin did is create the blockchain, which I think is genius. But look, most money is already digital. The cash, the coins that we think of as money, that's 3% of the total money supply. Total money supply has gone up by like 40, 50%. So the real problem is inflation. And the real problem that consumers are having is affording everything, right? Especially the cost of shelter, food, energy, so on and so forth. So I think that this is dead on arrival.
So what do you say to the advocates of this tax who argue that these wealthy people, I mean, they're avoiding taxes, so putting this tax on them will sort of level the playing field because you know how the situation is with wealthy people. They pay very little tax.
Well, there are more than one type of tax, okay? Because there's not just a capital gains tax, there's an income tax, there's a sales tax, there's a payroll tax. There is a lot of tax. And I'm lucky enough or wise enough to live in a state that has no state income tax. But the problem isn't the tax. Wealthy people are wealthy because they are providing valuable services to society, okay? The beauty of the free market system is someone like my father, who came to this country at age 19 with nothing except hard work, determination, and energy, right? And now he has created so many hundreds of jobs. He's paid millions of dollars in taxes. My sister is an attorney. I'm doing pretty good. And, this is just the beginning, and there's millions of people like that. So the problem is the government is spending too much money. If it was easy to legislate wealth, then we would have already done it. This is a terrible idea, I must say.
Okay, final question here, and we have about 30 seconds. Is it not true that hedge funds charge performance fees? I mean, and they don't refund them, right? If the value of the portfolio falls the following year, is this not similar to a tax on unrealized gains?
Well, first of all, hedge funds, there's so many different ones with so many different fees. And you're correct that most of the time they do not refund performance fees, just like we don't get a refund when our government makes a mistake. I think that there's 40 billion unaccounted for with Ukraine. I think the Pentagon hasn't submitted their financials in quite some time. I think that the fraud in Medicare, Social Security, which is off balance sheet liabilities. So that's on top of the $35 trillion that we already owe. So listen, we can point fingers at anybody, but the government is supposed to work for us. So the one thing we all have in common, if we don't already work for the government, is that we need to hold them accountable.
All right, Vijay, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, as always.
Okay, moving on from that, are you thinking of upgrading your car? Well, let's now go to NTD's Shar Marshall, who's going to show us some models offering 0% financing over 72 months.
When considering a new vehicle, paying 0% on a car loan over 72 months can seem like a pretty sweet deal. Here's what RealCarTips.com says about the best 0% deals out there right now. The Ford Mach-E is coming in hot at 480 horsepower with a 0 to 60 time of 3.8 seconds and $750 cash back. It also has hands-free highway driving on 97% of controlled access highways in the US and Canada.
Something to keep in mind is that while they're pushing the 0% APR, they could also be pushing other cash incentives or other discounts. Sometimes they can't be combined, but what can be combined is the EV tax credits, which is dependent on the different vehicle and the different manufacturer.
The Ford Mach-E also has an average manufacturer's suggested retail price under $50,000. That's an estimated $700 a month over 72 months. Also priced under $50,000 is the base model Toyota BZ4X at $48,000 and the Subaru Solterra for almost $50,000, both around $700 a month over 72 months. The BZ4X is almost identical to the Subaru Solterra because both electric SUVs were jointly developed by the two companies. The main difference is that the BZ4X is available with either front or all-wheel drive, but the Solterra is all-wheel drive only. The 2024 Solterra offers features that the 2024 Toyota BZ4X doesn't, like standard driver focus distraction mitigation system and standard eyesight driver assist technologies with traffic jam assist and lane change assist. If you think all of these top-rated models look kinda similar, you're right. Fix says compact SUVs have been the best-selling car segment for the last 5 years. And ending the list is Lexus RZ with good ride and handling balance, premium interior, and eye-catching exterior styling. Priced at $59,823 or around $830 a month at 0% APR. The Volkswagen ID.4 base model will cost you $50,465 or $700 a month, but it's also eligible for the full $7,500 federal tax credit. The rear-wheel drive model produces 282 horsepower, while the all-wheel drive model now has an impressive max 335 horsepower. This increase in power helps to boost acceleration and delivers enhanced range. When looking at a more comprehensive list of 0% APR deals, electric vehicles continue to dominate.
But what's most interesting is that the top 16 deals, 10 of them are electric vehicles. One of them is a hybrid, and all of the ICEs, the cars with engines, they're all trucks and SUVs. So it's a very interesting mix, and you can see that the companies and the dealerships are all pushing for moving those electric vehicles.
Just know that when chasing these deals down, they are often reserved for customers with the best credit rating. Also, read the fine print carefully. Dealers also often offer other cashback incentives and discounts separately from 0% financing deals. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
And Chinese-founded fast fashion retailer Shein is shoring up its business as it plans to go public on the London Stock Exchange. The company revealed that it discovered and addressed 2 cases of child labor in its supply chain. This is on top of dealing with sustainability concerns. Take a look at this.
E-commerce giant Shein released its 2023 sustainability report. In it, it found 2 cases of child labor at its suppliers. Shein's popularity has grown rapidly around the world with its low-priced tops, dresses, and accessories. But the fast fashion firm has faced criticism over its low-cost business model. Shein tightened supplier policy last October after child labor cases were found. In the most recent cases, Shein said it suspended orders from those suppliers who had employed children under 16. The company said both cases had been resolved swiftly. It said the suppliers ended contracts with underage employees and helped return the workers to parents or guardians when necessary. Shein said it would only source from them again after they strengthened their employee process. That would include checking the identity documents of workers. Shein's audits have grown exponentially, from about 600 in 2021 to nearly 4,000 last year. The company has not shared the number of child labor cases, only the percentage of audits that found minors in the workplace. In 2021, it was nearly 2%, and last year it was 0.1%. In Shein's latest report, it said that the company remains vigilant in guarding against violations and will terminate any non-compliant suppliers. Investors will be poring over Shein's report, released just months after the company filed for an initial public offering in London. Shein's CEO said improving its supply chain and managing its carbon footprint were critical areas for the company.
Now, most of us consume U.S. news online, probably from places, like Facebook, for example, or perhaps Google. Well, speaking of Google, the company will now fund Californian newsrooms, and that has some journalists worried. Take a look at this.
In a first-in-the-nation deal, Google will commit $250 million over 5 years to fund newsrooms in California. The public-private deal between the tech giant and the state also includes funding for artificial intelligence, which some journalists have warned poses a threat to their jobs. The agreement ends a battle between Google and state lawmakers on how to fund local newsrooms. Lawmakers will now drop a proposed bill that would have forced companies like Google and Meta to pay news organizations for distributing their content. The bill, known as the California Journalism Preservation Act, was modeled after similar laws implemented in Australia and Canada. It would have funded local news organizations that have seen their business models collapse amid the rise of big tech platforms. Since the bill was introduced last year, Google has ran numerous ads opposing it. It also temporarily blocked content from several California-based news outlets. The bill's author, Oakland Assembly member Buffy Wicks, also helped broker this latest deal with Google. She said this new agreement is the best way to get money into the hands of news publishers without having to go through the legislative process. But some associations representing news staff criticized the deal, calling it disastrous. The Media Guild of the West, which represents hundreds of journalists and media workers in California, Arizona, and Texas, filed a letter in opposition to the deal. It reads, "The future of journalism should not be decided in backroom deals." The legislature embarked on an effort to regulate monopolies and failed terribly. Another trade association, News Media Alliance, said the announcement, quote, reinforces the need for federal legislation and potential court remedies to address this broken marketplace. The association, which represents approximately 2,000 news organizations, said Google is a monopoly that reaps significant revenue by scraping and repackaging news content. Several California lawmakers also criticized the agreement. State Senator Steve Glazer said it doesn't provide sufficient resources to rescue independent news gathering in California. However, California Governor Gavin Newsom hailed the agreement and said it will ensure the survival of newsrooms in the state.
And yeah, that's all the stories I have for you guys on today's Business Matters.
Don, you mentioned Fed Chair Jerome Powell speaking in Jackson Hole, Wyoming tomorrow. It's highly anticipated that he's going to announce a rate cut. We don't know that for sure, but I'm wondering how that would affect the economy.
So here's the thing, with rate cuts, there's always a delay from the initial time and when those effects take place. So we're expecting about a 25 basis point or a 1/4 percent point cut from Federal Reserve in the September meeting. So, with that, we might have to wait, 6 months, maybe even longer for a potential impact on the economy. And when we do see that, it could be in the form of lower credit card rates, lower car loan rates, mortgages. So that could save some money for potentially a lot of families in the U.S.
Yeah, and speaking about cars, that story about these robo-taxis, these self-driving cars and all these issues seems like quite a concerning issue considering how many new electric vehicles, especially self-driving ones, are getting onto the road. So definitely a little...
Yeah. I mean, we've heard about the cruise situation over the past few months, and not all of it has been good. Well, personally, I wouldn't want to be a pedestrian in front of a Cruise GM self-driving car.
Not yet, anyway. Don Ma, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Coming up, a rare celestial object is racing through the Milky Way at over 1 million miles an hour. Fast enough to escape the galaxy and go intergalactic. We have that and more after this break.
Do you ever wake up and realize your life has no purpose?
Do I have a death wish? Morgan asked. Maybe I did. I thought this would be our final run ever. We had made millions and millions of dollars, but God had other plans.
Peter Lowe, the one-time drug dealer turned pastor, along with 2 others, will be executed at 12 midnight local time.
The next day, something strange happened. Someone came up to me and gave me this flyer about Jesus.
You can be in heaven, or you can be in hell. The choice is yours.
We'll walk straight out of here. Pretend to be the media.
This pathetic maggot got caught trying to escape my prison. Nobody escapes my prison.
He's a changed person. He's a new man.
I found Christ in here, and he forgave me.
I found Christ too.
My name is Peter Lowe, and I will be executed in 2 hours. Why am I being executed, you ask?
Jesus is for free, and salvation is a gift. Do you believe in Jesus?
That's all from us for today. Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G.
And I'm Chris Beers. See you tomorrow.